Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. This podcast is going to walk you through my journey into mediumship and how I came to realize that I could communicate with souls that have passed over. My adventure started just over a year ago when unusual situations started happening to me. It wasn't until I really started to pay attention to them that it all started to come together. I wrote down everything that I was experiencing this past year in a little black book, and this podcast is going to be a recap of all of those memories leading up to where I am today in my mediumship journey. I will be releasing new episodes every Tuesday, and I recommend listening to the podcast in order, starting with episode 1, as my story will unfold more week by week. If you would like to stay connected with me, follow me on Instagram at mediuminthemiddle. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 18. Today is December 10th. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. So apologies for sounding very nasally this week. I am just getting over a cold. The flu's going around. 'Tis the season. And I beat it in 2 days. So I will deal with this stuffy nose. And you think that by now I would learn to record podcast earlier than perhaps the day that they need to go live, but no. It takes me more than once to learn these lessons. But noted for next time, record in advance when you're not sick, so that when you get sick, you don't have to sound like this. So I'm sorry, but the show must go on. So jumping back to it being December 10th today, in last week's episode, I said that I was going to do 2 more episodes today and next week. And I don't think I had any idea how close December 17th was to Christmas. December is flying by, it's here, and soon it's going to be gone. And today is going to be my last episode for the year. And Medium in the Middle will be back on January 7th. So we're going to have a break over the holidays, Christmas parties, Christmas fun, everyone's super busy, and then we will be back January 7th. So I'm going to switch up my plan again and leave you guys with a banger for today because I really want to tell this story and I'm really excited to share it. So I'm going to leave you with this, and because I'm changing up my plan today, I'm going to have to go for a walk to take my picture, which I have been meaning to take before the snow fell. So I'm very interested to see how this picture is going to work out today, but I will do it for Instagram. So if you want to see the picture, after you listen to the episode, you will get it. Follow me on Instagram at mediuminthemiddle, and you will be able to see, well, just listen and you'll see what I'm going to post. All right, so I want to jump right into this episode because I'm really excited for the story. I remember when this day actually happened. The podcast wasn't started yet, but I was definitely really working on it. And I remember saying, this is going to be a podcast episode, and I'm going to call it June 18th. And now that I'm actually in the podcast world, you can't just call a podcast June 18th because that's boring. But it was like a whole day of witchness, a whole day of, it was just a day. It was a lot. So I'm going to start from the morning of this day, and I'm going to tell you the whole story. And then I'm going to tell you what happened a week later. Before I jump right into it, if you're not subscribed to the podcast, please subscribe. And if you are using iTunes, if you could leave a rating and a review, I would really appreciate it. All right, let's get started. So the day started off, I remember I had the day off and I was cooking breakfast. I called my mom and we were just chatting on the phone. And I said, hey mom, like, what's up? And she said that she was tired because the night before she was talking to her friend Julie. Julie's sister was really sick and they thought she was going to die last night. So they were all kind of up and they were there and worried that she was going to pass away. And I said on the phone, she wasn't going to die last night. And my mom was kind of like, how do you know, Steph? And I was like, Mom, you don't know by now? Like, I just know these things. She wasn't going to die last night. And she said, how do you know? You don't even know this woman. And she was very, like, interested to know how. She was like, just explain to me how. Like, she said, are you connecting to her because we're talking to her? Is it because she's my friend? Is it because you know Julie? Like, how? And I said, I don't know. All I know is that she wasn't going to die last night. I was like, she's gonna die soon, but she's waiting for someone who's flying to come see her. And whenever that person arrives, she's still gonna stay alive for a few days because whoever that person that's coming, they're gonna need a few days to come to grips with her passing away, and they need to tell her something before she will pass. I said, so tell them not to worry because Julie's sister is waiting for someone. And then even when that person arrives, like there's going to be a few more days before she passes because this person needs to come to terms with something. And my mom goes silent on the phone. And she says, how do you know that? And I was like, Mom, I don't know how I know that. I just know that. But you could tell Julie, like, not to worry for the next few days. It's not going to happen immediately. And she said, you're right. Julie's sister's son is flying back to Ontario. He lives out here in Alberta, and he arrives today. She said, there's no way that you could know that. How did you know that her son was traveling today? And I said, I don't know, but I guess he's the one that she's waiting for. And when he arrives, he has something that he needs to tell his mother. So she's not going to pass until he's had a few days to kind of say his goodbyes and kind of come to terms with her passing. And my mom was just kind of blown away. She was like, how do you know this? Just explain it to me. And I didn't have any solid answers. I couldn't really explain to her why. I just knew what I knew. So I went about my day. She kind of hung up the phone. She said, well, do I tell Julie? And I said, yeah, like I would tell her not to worry. I'm like, don't tell her everything, but tell her that, they have a few more days. Tell the family not to rush. Like, the mom is waiting for all the kids to go and for everyone to say their goodbyes. So that day I was meeting a friend for dinner. I had the day off. And we went to a restaurant that is up on a hill. So after dinner was finished, we decided to walk into town to go for a drink. The way that you walk down from this restaurant, there's two options. There's a path, or there's these like stairs that you can go down. And we decided to go down the path because we wanted to head to town. So as we're walking down the path loops around the graveyard in Banff. And we were just walking on the path right beside the graveyard, and the graveyard is covered in a fence. So anyways, we're walking down the path around the graveyard, and I'm walking with a friend who is also a Reiki master, and she's very in tune, and we always joke that we're witchy friends. So we're walking around, and I turn to her, and I say, there's someone following us. And she said, what? And I said, there's a spirit following us from inside the graveyard. And she said, well, who is it? And I said, I don't know. And she said, well, what's his name? And she said, he hasn't told me. And then I said, oh no, his name starts with a J. I'm like, oh, his name starts with J-A. I'm like, oh, his name is James. He's telling me his name is James. And she said, well, ask him what he wants. And I said, he's saying that he wants us to come find his grave. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, he's saying that he wants us to come find his grave. Like, should we go do it? And she was like, yeah, why not? Like, we're walking down anyways. And I said, okay, to the little boy. He was a little boy. He was between 5 and 7 years old, and he wanted us to come find his grave. He had short, dark hair, and he was telling me his name was James. So I said, okay, James, if you want me to come find your grave, you need to show me how to get into the graveyard, because we had been walking around it for a while following the path, but there was no doors, and I had never been in the graveyard in Banff before, so I didn't know how to get in. So he said, okay, I'll show you to the door. So my friend was very open. She's like, yeah, let's go. And I said, okay, he's going to show us how to go inside. So he brought us to the door, and it was unlocked, and we went in. And he said, okay, my grave is in this quadrant of the graveyard. So the graveyard is kind of like a square, and he told me that it was in the upper right-hand side. And I lifted up my arms, and I pointed into like a triangle formation, and I said, James said his grave is somewhere in here. So we're looking for a little boy's grave, so the numbers are going to be close together, like 2000 to 2005, because he's a young boy. And his name is James, so we'll just look in this little quadrant. And my friend was like, okay, I'll help you look. So we decided that the best way to do this was to go row by row, in the little quadrant that he told me and look for any gravestones that said James that had short years from the birth date to the death date. And my friend was super open, and I was fully ready to not find anything. I was thinking that we're going to walk through this quadrant, we're not going to find this grave, and then we're going to continue on our merry way and head downtown for some drinks. So we start off by finding quite a few tombstones that have the name James on it. So I was like, oh, I have a James here. Oh, but he's 38. Oh, another James. Oh, he's 72. Oh, another James. Oh, he's 25. And we didn't even see any children. The youngest person that we found was 20 years old. So we're walking in the quadrant, and we're almost done where he had told me his grave was. And my friend turns to me and she says, well, where's his grave? He told you that it was here. And I said, well, like if it's not in this last row, well, then I'm not looking through this whole graveyard. If it's not here, then we can just go. So we're walking down the final row of where he told us it would be, and we see a little family. And the tombstone says James, and on the right of it, it says wife of James, and on the left of it, it says son of James. And the little spirit boy starts saying, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. And I said, oh my gosh, we found it. We found his grave. And he said, I had to tell you my name was James because you can't see my name on my grave. My name's Adam. Can you push the grass away so that you can see my name? And me and my friend both looked to each other, and we were stunned that we found the grave. The boy was only 5 years old, and you couldn't see his name because the grass had grown over. He died in like 1928. When I go to get the picture today of the grave, I'll put it on Instagram, but he had been here for a long time. And I turned to my friend and I said, he died like almost 100 years ago. What is he still doing here? And she said, I don't know. So I kind of asked the spirit, what are you doing here? And he was like, I don't know. Like, why can't I see you? Where's everybody else? And he was just like a 5-year-old. He was very curious. He was very up and down, like high energy. And I said, why are you still here? Like, where are your parents? I don't get it. Usually souls don't stick around for 100 years. And he was very confused. He didn't know why he could only talk to me. He didn't know where everybody was. He didn't understand why the graveyard was empty. Because in my belief, graveyards are empty. Your soul definitely doesn't hang out on your grave. And if you're staying on earth, like your soul is sticking around on earth, the reason why I believe I can talk to spirits is because I heard a theory that your soul is connected to the earth for as long as you have family that you know on earth. So for example, if I was a mother, my soul is connected for as long as my kids are on the earth. And if I met their kids, then I'll stay around for as long as their kids are alive. But as soon as you have family that you haven't met personally, that's when you cross over, move on, reincarnate, whatever you want to believe. So it kind of makes sense to me that souls stick around for as long as they still know people on earth. And then once they have no reason to kind of be here anymore, then they move on. So for him to be here for 100 years and to be 5 years old and alone, it really didn't make sense to me. So I was trying to ask him to get more information, but he was behaving and acting just like a 5-year-old. So it was really hard to get information from him. He didn't really know anything. He didn't know why he could talk to me. It was really confusing for the both of us. And for me and my friend, we fully weren't expecting to even find a grave named James with a child. So we were kind of in shock as well. So after we sat at his grave for a while and hung out with him, which sounds really weird, but it just felt like we needed to be there for a few minutes. We picked the grass away so that you could see his name. We decided that we should just go back to town. And he was kind of like a little boy where he's like, woohoo, like I can go with you now because I know you and I can talk to you and I'm not alone. And I was saying, no, James, or Adam, I called him by his name now. I said, you have to stay here. Like you can't follow me home now because I definitely don't need any more spirits following me around. And he said, well, what am I supposed to do? And I said, well, wait here and I'll come back for you and I'll visit you, but you can't follow me home. You have to stay here. And he said, okay. So he stayed in the graveyard, and then me and my friend left and went about our night. So it's about a week later, and I'm having lunch with a friend of mine who is a channeler. So she is the one who did my Reiki Masters course for me the first time, who I've spoken about on this podcast. And in the new year, I am going to invite her on the podcast because I would love her insight onto this, because she knew way more than I did, and she had to really help me in this situation. So we were at lunch just catching up, and I told her about this whole James situation. I said, me and my friend were walking near the graveyard. I've never gone like graveyard hunting before. It's not something that I've ever been. Like, you go to a graveyard for a funeral or to visit a loved one, but ever since I've really discovered that I was a medium, I've never really been in a graveyard. And to my knowledge, they should be empty. Like, souls shouldn't be there. And I told her what happened. And she said, well, why didn't you send him home? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, he's stuck. She's like, he shouldn't be here for 100 years. And I said, well, I don't know. I didn't know what to do. And she said, well, what do you think he came to you for? And I was like, well, I thought that he came to me so that I could pick the grass off of his grave so that people could know his name was Adam and not James. And she was like, no, he was coming to you because he saw the light and he needs your help and he knows that you can help him. And I was like, oh. She said, you have to go send him home. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. So she said, how about after lunch, we both go back to the graveyard and I'll help you. And I said, okay, I feel like we just need to do this now, and you're the one that's going to help me with it, so let's go. So after lunch, her and I walked to the graveyard, and it's not too far, and I'm kind of laughing to myself about how crazy this situation is. But we go along anyways, and she's done this before, so it was pretty normal for her. But I was kind of like, are we really going back to the graveyard right now to go send this boy home? Like, what does this mean? Like, are we in a movie? Like, this is crazy. So we're on the street that leads up to the graveyard, and as soon as we're about halfway down the street, I can feel Adam's presence almost immediately. And I said, he knows we're coming, and he knows that something's up. He's a little nervous. So when we walk in the doors, he's right there waiting at the gate, and he clings onto my arm just like a little child would do, and he kind of knows something is up, but he's excited to see us because we're someone that can actually talk to him, and he's kind of like, what's going on? What's going on? And I didn't want to tell him because I didn't want to make him nervous, and I didn't actually know what we were doing. So me and my friend are walking to the gravesite, and I said, well, do we even have to go right to his graveyard because his soul is right here? And she was like, yeah, we're going to go to his gravesite and we're going to sit there, and because you're already connected, you're going to be the one to do it. And I said, okay, what are we doing? So she said, you're going to call for his parents. So the way she explained it to me is that people can get stuck on different levels. I'm going to do a really bad job explaining this. So people can get stuck on certain levels. So once you're on a higher level, you can see souls below you, but the souls on the lower level cannot see souls above them. So she explained it to me that his mom can see him, but he can't see his mom. And sometimes when people die in trauma or a car accident or they die suddenly, they don't know that they're dead, so they're kind of stuck on this earth in a relapse, wondering what happened, wondering what's going on, because they don't realize that they're dead. So she said, what we need to do is call his mom down to this level so that she can take his soul and then help him cross over. And I said, okay, well, how do we do that? And she said, all right, sit down. So I sat down near his grave, and I felt his soul right beside me. He was hugging onto my arm. He was scared at this point because he knew we were up to something. And she said, call for his parents. And I said, well, how do I do that? And she said, just like call out for them in your mind. Like, we know their names, so call out to them. So I said, okay. So I was sitting there in my mind, thinking their names, trying to imagine them coming down to get Adam. So I'm sitting there, and it's a few minutes. Nothing's happening. So I say to my friend, nothing's happening. I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just calling out to nothing. This little boy beside me is scared. His soul is scared. He doesn't know what we're doing. She said, nope. She's like, you're the connection. You have to do it. Just sit there and call for them. They'll come. So I said, okay. And it felt like 5 minutes. I don't know how long it actually was, but it felt like a long time of me calling out to nothing. So in my mind's eye, I'm calling the mom and the dad, the mom and the dad. My eyes are closed, and in the far, far distance, I see this woman walking towards me. And it looks like she's kind of like walking down a mountain. And she's wearing like this plain brown cloth looking like clothing. She has short dark hair, and she starts walking towards me. And immediately James perks up and he says, "That's my mom." And I said, "Okay, so your mom's here, so I just got to call for your dad." So I see the mother now, and I continue to call for the dad. Calling for the dad, and the dad's not coming. So I say to my friend, "The dad's not coming, just the mom." So she said, "Okay, we'll see if he'll go with his mom." And I was like, "Oh yeah, like he ran to her, like he's over there now." She had come down far enough down the mountain that he was able to kind of run to her, and he had left my side. And she said, "Okay, tell her to take him home with her." And I said, "Okay." So it was like these two souls in my mind's eye, they held hands, turned around, started to walk back up the mountain. Adam turns around and waves at me, and then in a poof of an eye, like poof, I felt his soul was just gone. The only way that I can describe this feeling is if you're sleeping beside someone, when your eyes are closed, you know that there's someone else in the bed. So that's how it felt when he was sitting beside me holding my arm. It felt like there was someone right beside me. And then as soon as he grabbed his mom's hand and walked away, it was like that person had just got up out of bed and now there was nothing beside me. And I opened my eyes quickly and I started yelling to my friend. I said, "He's gone, he's gone. His soul is gone." And she was like, "Good. Then it worked. He's gone. He's going to go with his mom. He's going to do his soul review. Let's go back. Da, da, da." And I was like, What? Wait, no, like his soul was just right beside me and now it's gone. Like poof, gone. And I actually cried a little bit because this little boy, I don't know, you make these weird connections with souls, and he had just disappeared. And she said, "Yeah, you did a good job. You sent him home. Like now he's with his mom. He's not stuck here anymore." But I wasn't really expecting it to work for some reason, so when his soul just disappeared, I was really in shock. And because she does this work more often, she was just like, "Good job, let's go." And I needed a moment to really process it. So we left the graveyard after a little while, and I was still like, holy cow, I couldn't believe that happened. And I couldn't wait to tell the friend that I went with the first time about how we sent Adam home. So I've since gone to this restaurant again and walked down the same path down, and as I'm walking down, the graveyard is empty. I've even gone back to the gravesite of Adam and James and his mom, and I've never felt anything. His soul is completely gone. I don't feel anything. And it is a little sad, but I know it was a good thing to do. So that is the story of what happened all on June 18th. It was one crazy day of all of these things happening to me. In the new year, I want to invite this friend on the podcast so that she can talk more about channeling and what she knows about the different dimensions and souls crossing over, because I think it's very interesting. It's a whole nother world that I know nothing about. I've had a few people tell me in the nice way, they're like, "Oh, Steph, we just kind of assume that you know everything about certain topics." And I don't. I know what I know, but I don't know about different dimensions. I don't know a lot about astrology. I don't know even like everything there is to know about mediumship. I'm so new in my journey. I'm such a beginner that I don't know everything. So sometimes people ask me questions and I say, "Well, I don't know." And they're like, "Oh, I just figured you would know that." And I was like, "No, like I can't explain most of the things that occur to me, let alone other things that I have no idea about." So to me, it's very, very interesting to learn more. And there's I'm going to be a forever student in this field, learning about souls and everything. Wow, it's just, I couldn't even imagine all the things there's to learn. So thank you very much for listening to this episode. I have been really excited to share the James episode for a while now. Ever since it happened, I was just blown away. And this is kind of one of the crazy stories that if I'm ever hanging out with friends or if someone wants to hear a story, I'll say, "Do you want to hear what happened when I walked by a graveyard?" And this is the shocker. This is the banger. This actually happened, and I have 2 witnesses that were with me to kind of contest to what happened. So thank you for listening. Thank you for dealing with my sniffly nose and nasal sounding voice. I will come back in the new year in 2020 fully healthy. Hopefully I have learned by then to pre-record my episodes and to see the picture. I'm going to go to the gravesite today and take a picture of the 3 tombstones, and I will post that on Instagram either later today or tomorrow. So if you want to check that out, just follow me on Instagram at Medium in the Middle so you can see the gravesite that Adam led me to. And I will also take a picture of kind of the quadrant that he told me that it was in so that you can see an idea of where he told me his grave actually was. So again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for getting this far in my journey, in my story, and following me along. Please have an amazing holiday season. Happy New Year. I can't wait to come back. January 7th, we will have a brand new episode. We will be jumping right back into it. I have so many good bangers coming up. We're getting further along into my story where bigger stories are happening again, so it's going to be really exciting content for the new year. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. I will see everybody in 2020. Bye.